Sean Haney from Real Agriculture here with Jim Wiesemeyer, the DC analyst for Pro Farmer. Jim, it's great to chat with you.
It's always good to be with you, Sean.
Jim, there's lots happening. Oh boy! Now I know earlier this week you were in Kansas. That's a great
Yes.
state to visit, giving a speech as you do throughout the winter months. And one of the things that you had texted me was still pretty dry in Kansas.
Yeah, still dry, although they recently, a couple weeks ago, they got it anywhere between 8 and 16 inches of snow. There was no snow on the ground that I saw. So, and following that, portions got some rain. So, that was much needed, but they need a lot more, Sean, because they've had 2 consecutive years of dry conditions. And while the majority of wheat producers have crop insurance, I'm picking up that really undercut the profits, if you will, of some co-ops. So if this continues, I think we'll have consolidation within the wheat industry in that section of the country.
Interesting. Yeah, we currently have the Bunge acquisition of Viterra that is, yet to be finally approved by any country at this point. But obviously, people looking at that, it could be interesting if that spark, just that deal alone sparks further consolidation in the sector. Of course, Viterra also bought Gavilon
Yeah.
not too long ago. And that dryness in the wheat belt, like in Kansas, when I think of wheat, I think of Kansas. It really it's a bigger area in general. Like it spreads all the way through different parts. Western Canada is still very dry. I'm really concerned, Jim, that if we don't get the moisture, there's a real concern here for wheat production in North America.
Yeah, the market every once in a while is focusing on that, and you see a blip up. I don't know whether that's a dead cat bouncer or not, but also China has been purchasing some soft red winter wheat from the U.S. I know we've had a couple of sales, and China doesn't usually do things in single doses, so that is also something to watch. That they've got an appetite for not only U.S. wheat but Australian wheat, so that'll help on the oversupply situation, Sean.
Yeah, get the wheat while you can. Maybe
Yes.
is
Yeah.
is a part of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, question for you. Now, usually we're talking about the terrible relationship between, or frayed relationship between Canada and China. But what's going on between the U.S. and China? Because President Xi, after that visit, it seemed everybody was reflecting on, hey, this was a pretty good visit. Everyone's friendly. Xi met with American CEOs. Seemed like China was opening back up. And what's happening now? We're only like 2 months later.
Well, it's gone the reverse. Yesterday, officially, the House Select Committee on China issued a report. And while they didn't call for a repeal of the Permanent Normal Trade Relations, PNTR, as we call it, it suggested, Sean, placing China into a new trading category that I think would effectively lead to its repeal. I'm telling you, and this is bipartisan support. There was only one Democrat who voted against these recommendations, and they really got detailed by saying, in the event of expected Chinese retaliation, that Congress should consider more spending to mitigate the damage to U.S. workers, including agriculture. So they're already setting up a reaction to what they see clearly coming of more than a kerfuffle between the U.S. And China. I don't think it bodes well for the U.S. ag sector in the years ahead.
So you think there actually is some signal more there than say the noise? Because what we've seen in Canada is sometimes is that there's a large bark, but the ag products still in some way find their way to China. It just may be a bit of a circuitous route. You think there's maybe going to be China looking for other options?
Oh, they will, because you don't embarrass China on the world market. Just this report's going to make them more than upset. Now, you need follow through on this. These are only recommendations. They have to be followed by Congress, and they have too many other sensitive issues. But I think early next year, this will be tied into politics as well, because you have both political parties do not want to be seen as being weak on U.S.-China relations. And see, that's what we're into. So yeah, we do have some time to settle this thing down, which I think is always good. But I just don't like the tea leaves. These were 150 recommendations in this report, and U.S. agriculture, especially soybeans, have a lot of potential impact in there. And there are other recommendations in there that would affect agriculture. They want USDA to be part of this committee that looks at transactions involving China, in particular farmland and agricultural technology. So this was a fairly comprehensive report, Sean.
Yeah, it seems at this point, just like it's politically beneficial for somebody running for president like Ron DeSantis to have a debate with a California governor, which seems extremely odd. It's also good politically to talk trash about China, and the question is what is the follow through with that, or is it just political rhetoric going through kind of the echo chamber, so to speak? But at the same time, overall, I think you and I have chatted offline about this. There's a lot of concern about the protectionist shift that the U.S. is really not. It's not just this isn't the beginning of it, but really kind of truly embarking on. It has me very concerned about the NAFTA renegotiation or the USMCA renegotiations can happen in 2026. But this is a real thing right now.
You're absolutely correct. And again, I hope it doesn't happen, but you can just feel it. Both political parties have turned inward. Inward. You can call it protectionism if you want. I do. We're going isolationist, and that's carrying over into the world politics. Look at the funding or the lack of funding for Ukraine. Look at the problems that President Biden is in relative to the Israel Hamas conflict. He's going to lose more than a few votes in some key states as a result of his strong defense for Israel. And now Biden's starting to back off in post-war, relative to how Israel is going to act. So your mention about the relook at USMCA, if Trump is the next president, look for an aggressive attitude toward him relative to Canadian trade policy. And our industry is out after your mandatory dairy
Yeah.
program. And I know you've told me in the past that it's equivalent to U.S. gun policy here, but I wouldn't take anything off the table. I just think trade relations between this country and even our allies are going to be frayed in the years ahead.
Is there any chance that, okay, like, the headline is Trump puts 10% tariff on all incoming goods, period. But in the details in paragraph 4, there's going to be a carve out for some agricultural goods, or is that not even on the table, do you think?
It depends who's the who's the president.
Right.
Trump doesn't like carve outs. He usually likes to throw money at those impacted. And in this report that we mentioned before, they're saying get the money ready. But boy, can you imagine the money that would be offset through worker training programs and direct payments? But if not, Sean, if this were to occur in this 10% tariff, at least 10%, Trump is saying,
Yeah.
the if they want if they want a recession in the U.S., this is a way to get one, if not the world, because you think Canada, Japan, other countries wouldn't retaliate. That's the definition of a trade war. But I'm sensing that they're saying, okay, bring it on. We understand it'll be, costly. I just don't like I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But this is the way the signals are going right now. I do want to point out your comment about that interesting debate, odd debate between DeSantis and Gavin Newsom.
Yeah.
There is growing odds here that Biden may not be the Democrat on that ticket. So I think it's a hedge on Newsom to get his face across. And what better way than to go on Fox News and to get more
Yeah.
broad coverage. And DeSantis is probably working on the hope that Trump's major lead in the polls that, frankly, I don't believe many polls anymore, but that he can whittle it down. We'll see. But he's keeping his options open as well. Uh, I cannot believe DeSantis campaigning in Iowa doesn't take Trump on relative to his threat of these 10% across the board import tariffs.
Right.
Here you're going through to a farm belt state and not pointing out the potential damage that Trump could cause. And so if he's not even doing that, why not? This is why he's not ahead in the polls. I'm talking about Ron DeSantis here. He's not picking the right topics.
Yeah. Well, think about the hog industry and the integration between you just Canada and the state of Iowa alone on hogs and things like that. It just, yeah, I'm right there with you. I think it's sort of a missed opportunity. I think I said this on AgriTalk on last Friday with Chip. Biden's only card at this point, based on his popularity, his only card was, yeah, all that's fine, but I can beat Trump. But the polls are showing that now that's not even the case. So what is your leverage at this point besides you're the incumbent? I think he's a real sitting duck inside that party.
Number one, even if he was reelected, which is doubtful now, he's a lame duck his first day of his second term. So that's weak there. Two is that the vast majority of Americans say that even if Biden continues to campaign, he's not going to fulfill his another 4 years. So who's coming up? Kamala Harris, the vice president, and they want no part of that. I think that's his biggest weakness right now
Yeah.
is, he just does not have the mental acuity and other problems to last another 4 years. And they're scared to death of Kamala Harris. That's point what I hear wherever I go in this country.
Yeah, no, interesting. On the trade front, interesting article that you had shared with me from Bloomberg, which was talking about of course, the Montana Senate race. John Tester, who is the incumbent, I believe from Sandy Hill, Montana. If I think there's a big sign as you drive through Sandy Hill, home of John Tester. Anyway, said squirrel. This beef labeling and beef origin labeling is a big topic in the Montana Senate race. Of course, this mandatory country of origin labeling has, this is a topic that comes to the surface and goes lower and then goes back to the surface. It's a bit of a rolling thing. This is kind of tied to what President Trump's talking about with the 10% incoming tariff. It all kind of fits together. What is the attitude right now in DC when it comes to beef origin labeling rules?
Well, in DC, it's like, haven't we crossed this bridge before? So it's
Right.
going to be an uphill climb. But what you mentioned at the state level, it's a populist topic that is gaining. Gains. It's never dead. It just gains life over and over again. It's like a Halloween movie. But I was in Montana a few weeks ago,
Yeah.
so now I'm an expert on Montana. I visited there. But I'll tell you, I want to be convinced that Tester's going to lose, even though his opponent may be a popular and a better candidate than he's had his prior elections, Mr. Sheehy.
Mhm.
But Sheehy originally comes from New Jersey, and that doesn't bode well amongst more than a few in Montana. Uh, Tester is a good candidate. So, and they know that the control of the Senate is going to come down to two states, Sean, Montana and Ohio. Ohio is Sherrod Brown, who really doesn't have a candidate against him yet. So the Republicans are already going to pick up one in West Virginia, Joe Manchin seat. That's an obvious GOP pickup. But so then we're at 50-50, which I think may happen if Montana and Ohio keep their Democratic candidates. I'm not going to rule out a 50-50 Senate after the 2024 election. If that's the case, then of course who's president becomes even more important because the vice president of the country breaks ties. So that's why you're going to have a lot of ag issues focus because of Montana, and you're
Yeah.
already bringing a few up.
Yeah. Very interesting. You mentioned Ukraine earlier. Support of Ukraine, of course, in Canada. This is just as a contentious of a topic, I believe, in terms of how much money or how can Canada support Ukraine financially, or moral support's worth about nothing at this point. They need weapons and they need cash. Um, Very contentious in the U.S. Now, I heard a number that let's just say we're talking about $10 billion. 80% of that money is actually spent in the U.S. In terms of manufacturing of weapons and things like that, which is also a job. I find it interesting that kind of stat is not talked about more. It's more phrased as if it's a blank check. Here, Ukraine. Here's some money. Do what you want with it.
Yeah, well, I think you're absolutely correct there, but we need to see officially those numbers
Yeah.
come out. This is what the Republicans are wanting. I don't think it's a bad tactic on their part. They said, look, U.S. taxpayers have put out billions of dollars in support of Ukraine. Let's just have can we have an accounting of this?
Yeah.
Because they know prior to this war, Ukraine, there was a lot of odd things happening in Ukraine.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
they're not the lily, you know,
Yes.
uh, let's say angelic
Yeah.
people that some people might think.
They're not a pure
No, they're
princess.
no, they're not pure at all. So many people want an accounting. You know, when I'm out in farm country, a number of farmers have asked me, "Hey, is any of this money going to support their agriculture?" And some of it has been, and so I'm starting to pick up those questions when I go out and speak.
Yeah.
So, but the biggest thing is the Republicans have drawn a line saying no more aid to Ukraine until we get a linkage to support policy changes, not just more funding of our southern border. And the White House is starting to move on this one, by the way.
But why is
So
that so difficult? So that to me just is like and maybe it shows my political leaning, but that to me that is an exceptionally easy compromise. Like, okay, you want funding for Ukraine, that's important to you. We need funding for the southern border to deal with record amount of people that are illegally crossing from Mexico into states like Arizona. What is the defense of not funding that?
because the extremes of both political parties, in the case of Biden, it didn't take a nanosecond for these so-called progressive groups, the AOC types in our country, to issue a letter, more than a letter to him, a warning, don't you dare.
Hmm.
And Biden cannot keep losing some of his sectors. He won't lose them to Trump. They just won't vote for him, you know.
Yeah.
So that's why it's politics. That's why he doesn't want to give. I mean, look at what he's come across in the young people relative to the Palestinian issue, and it's a direct result of this. And other than that, logic would indicate that yeah, tighten up your asylum rules and things like that. That's needed. He's starting to come around on this, but there'll be a political price to pay on his part.
Well, and I want to wrap up with this. Well, we're speaking about borders. I'm hearing more and more people on the right side of the aisle, including presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy, if I'm saying that correctly, talking about the northern border is a big problem, Jim, which is much different than the southern border. But why is this taking up some political oxygen?
It's just border equals votes, I guess. But it's just Vivek peaked very early. He's scary now. His
Yeah.
geopolitical views and things like that. He's a mini Trump. We only need one Trump, and that's Trump himself. You know, but no, I wouldn't put too much weight on that. Yeah, you can always improve border yeah, controls, but the Canada border is our least concern right now.
Well, I've even heard from Montana, Gavin Rosendale, talking about, protecting the northern border, which is, kind of interesting, especially
Well,
for,
Rosendale is part of the Gang of Eight on the far right side, the
yeah,
rebels, I call them on the
yeah.
Republican side, that if he were to run against Tester, I'll guarantee you Tester will win. Okay.
Hmm.
So watch that. Rosendale is the part of what I call the Gates from Hell, the Matt Gates group from Florida.
Yep.
That if you're in the middle of the road on any issue, you're roadkill. And so hopefully they'll be neuterized in the coming years.
Well, all of that should be of stark concern and a little bit of providing a little bit of the eye the bulb, your fortune telling in terms of how difficult potentially this 2026 renegotiation of the USMCA could be with these kinds of things out there in the political ecosystem out in the countryside and in DC.
Agree totally.
Yeah,
Agree.
Jim, hey, it's great to chat with you, man. All the best to you
Anytime.
in your travels. Merry Christmas to you, and we'll
Merry
chat with you again
Christmas.
soon.
Okay. Anytime.